Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Mayor Cal Sheehy, and I'm joined with City Manager Jessica Knudsen.
Good morning.
Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. And I'm going to actually turn it back over to Gordon. If you want to share a little bit about the facility for those watching at home or live, we are at the Senior Center, which is a county-owned facility. And we're going to have Gordon share just a little bit about what this facility does.
The Lake Havasu Senior Center has been in business here for a long, long time. We serve many people in the community with Meals on Wheels program. We deliver about 12,500 meals per month to the homebound here in the main dining room, and we serve conduit meals here. About 18,000 meals are served here in this room every month. You're invited to lunch with us whenever you want. The menu is posted on our website, LakeHavasuSeniorCenter.com, and if you'll tell us a day ahead of time, you can come dine with us. Prices are very reasonable. If you're over 60, there's a $3 donation. If you're under 60, you must pay $5. We have about 2,000 people pass through here for our activities. We have activities like bingo, bunco, Mexican train. We have a senior exercise program going on right now on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's very popular. We had a cardiac surgeon here one day. He said, "Wow, if I didn't have to work, I'd be taking part in this senior exercise program." We have line dancing. We have games like hand and foot and Mexican train. We have an art guild. The arts and crafts people meet once a week, and you can just sit and work on your own projects, and they have a lot of fun. We have a music jam session. Musicians just come in here and play. Just all get together and have a great time. We have a new feature called Bollywood Dance. It's like an Indian Zumba, and they say you can burn 800 calories an hour if you participate in the activity. We have a Tai Chi for health as well. And Tai Chi is now expanded to 2 classes. We have a beginning class and then a more advanced class when you're really get to be super. Line dancing is 3 classes with beginning, intermediate, which they call improving, and then the advanced class. So we invite you to come participate in the activities, enjoy lunch, just have a great time. We have lots of outdoor things too, horseshoes and bocce ball. We have about 2,000, we have about 600 members in our group here. You do not have to be a member to participate in any of the activities. But if you do become a member, you're entitled to use the lending library, where we have books, large print books, videos, and audio books. So that's a benefit of membership. And we just thank you all for coming today and meet the mayor and city manager.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to the board and to Lisa for hosting us here at the Senior Center. This is located on Acoma Boulevard, and if you want to know more information, stop by and to learn a little bit more about it. So if you're new to Coffee with the Mayor and the City Manager, our format is pretty flexible. We'll give you a city update and let you know what's happening here in the city, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have regarding the city after we're done with that. So we'll get right into it. What we have been starting with since I took office in November is road construction. I'm happy to say that most road construction is now complete. The most recent project was on Swanson Avenue, and that area is now open. That's the area from Acoma down to just past Scott Drive, about 7/10 of a mile. You'll notice some improvements in the pedestrian side of that roadway. There's now a bike lane on one side, and then there's a multi-use path. So the way that project came together is that was actually funded through ADOT and some sources in that area. But from the city's perspective, we needed to replace the asphalt, and we didn't really have the money to replace the asphalt. but by applying for these grants, we were able to get that asphalt repaired as long as we had some conditions. And those conditions in this particular case was to include a bike lane and also to include a multi-use path. So some folks say, well, it's only 7/10 of a mile and it just ends. Why would you do that? The idea and the intent is that would continue on down Swanson as additional funding sources are identified in the next 5, 10, 20 years, so that that whole corridor would be a pedestrian-friendly area. Also, if you don't use the area as a pedestrian, it does connect into the Pima Wash Trail. That's also down on Pima Wash, which will lead to Rotary Park or lead you up into the downtown area and up to Acoma through the Wash Trail system. So it did make some sense. And also as ASU campus grows in that neighborhood, we're gonna have more people that are walking and going through. So we're very proud of that project, and we're glad that ADOT was able to fund it, meaning that we didn't have to use any of our local taxpayer dollars to take care of that roadway. The next improvement that you'll see in roads is over on Highway 95 at Kiowa. This is a safety improvement project and also another asphalt preservation project. If you've driven in that intersection, you know it's kind of bumpy and your teeth kind of chatter as you drive along the roadway in that area. So we are going to get an overlay of new asphalt in that area that will prevent that from being such a rough ride. And then there also will be some traffic improvements with a median right in front of the shopping center area to help make that area safer. That's one area that's been identified as a very dangerous roadway and intersection in Lake Havasu City. Again, that's a state project, but very important to us because we all traverse those roads every single day. So that is the update, much easier than my initial updates when we had all of the roads closed and no one could get around. So it probably will be one of our last updates on traffic for a while. So another issue that we've been talking about over the last several coffees with the mayor and city manager is the short-term rental challenges that we're having within our community. So those short-term rentals, just to bring people up to speed, is when people rent out their house through a property manager or through a large website for a short-term basis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nights in the community. And some of the feedback that we've been hearing from residents is noise and traffic and congestion and trash and some of those types of things. This conversation is not new. It's been ongoing in Lake Havasu City for about 5 or 6 years, and the City Council addressed it with a very good ordinance in 2016. And that ordinance really protected private property rights and also protected the neighborhoods with a lot of conditions that made it a safe place to be, with good neighbor brochures, contact information so we could address any issues. But that was deemed, there was a 1487 on it, which basically means any legislator in the state of Arizona can challenge any city ordinance. In this case, a legislator from the Valley area challenged Sedona's, and Sedona's was similar to ours, not identical, but similar, which basically the Attorney General then deemed that it violated state law and was no longer able to be in effect. Same thing happened to us, and so we've been working really hard with our state leadership, Senator Borelli and Representative Biasucci and Representative Cobb from our local district, along with others, to work with the governor's office to adopt some short-term rental provisions that allow us to help manage those neighborhoods, but still allow the property owners the right of their property. So we are in the process, Jess and his team are drafting an ordinance that we'll see probably in early November that would go into effect after the first of the year. The state law is just the beginning of what we can do, and I'll let Jess talk a little bit about some of the small amount of things that we can do with this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mayor. So as Mayor Sheehy indicated, we're drafting the ordinance, and basically it's a direct reflection of what the state statute. So the bill that was adopted by the legislature and signed by the governor allows a few tools to take place for us to adopt and enforce here in Lake Havasu City. For the first time, we're able to make direct contact and hold the property owner accountable for what's happening at the location. We're talking about a very small percentage of the vacation rentals here in Havasu, but there are a few that are causing a lot of problems in terms of noise and trash and disturbing the year-round residents. So for the first time, we're able to, if that occurs and there's a problem that happens, PD will respond, and then we cite the owner is the new process. So if the owner, the first fine I believe is $500, second fine is $1,000, again to the owner, not the occupant, because otherwise that occupant is new every time the PD responds to an issue there. And that third fine, if it happens within the course of 12 months, is a fine that is half of the gross income on that property in the month that the violation occurred. So that's the teeth of, or we're referring to it as the tooth, that allows us to manage some of the things that with regards to vacation rentals. And really, we're addressing the situation where you have some of the advertisements that are out there that maybe it's a 4-bedroom, 2,000 square foot home that's up for rent, and they're advertising, bring 30 people, maximum 30 people can locate here. So what's going to happen when 30 people show up to a residence like that with a rental? It's going to be loud, and the residents aren't going to enjoy that. So we're hoping that's going to curb that type of practice moving forward. Some of the other things in the bill is, and then will be adopted through the city ordinance, no more special events, venues, things like that, where you're inviting a couple hundred of your closest friends over for a wedding and then disturbing the neighborhood, those types of things. And then there's got to be a registration process that occurs with the state, and that TPT license that you get through the state has to be posted on each of your advertisements. And then there's some enforcement that the city can pursue if that's not the case. So want to make sure everybody's registered and doing things proper. But yeah, that's going to be the code moving forward probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And then we're continuing to work with the state to be able to get a little bit more local control, because each community is just a little bit different. The way short-term rentals are impacting Lake Havasu City is a little bit different than how it's impacting Sedona, a little bit different than how it's impacting Page, Tucson, Phoenix. They all have a kind of a different issue. Locally, we're working with the local property managers group that professionally manage vacation rentals, and they're very willing to help be part of the solution to the local challenges and offer feedback and experience that they have with doing this for many, many years. And then I was appointed through the Greater Arizona Mayors Association to an ad hoc committee with other mayors around the state to help work on talking with the governor's office and our state leaders about some additional provisions to get a little bit more local control in that area. So we're going to continue to work hard on that. But what Jess and his team are going to propose to council and in the upcoming meetings is what is allowed by state law. This week we were happy to be able to welcome Congressman Paul Gosar. He was in the neighborhood. He's our U.S. Congressman. He's actually in the neighborhood a lot. He's very active, a really active member of our delegation. He was here to accept an award from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the Spirit of Enterprise, which basically is an award that's given out for his pro-business voting record. But he also sat down with local leaders and citizens to talk about a variety of issues that impact them from the federal level. He also will be back here on November 5th on a tour to talk about veterans issues. So there will be a town hall, so stay tuned to information from his office in the newspaper if you're interested in attending the town hall on November 5th. But we were really glad to see him again in the district and being a part of what it is that we're doing here. We also are actively working on transit and transit studies, and Jess, I'll turn it over to you if you want to kind of give an overview of what's happening and where we are at in the stage right now.
Okay. Great, thank you, Mayor. Years ago, Lake Havasu City, there was a transit program that existed with the buses and the bus stops, and at that time, I think there was 80-some stops in Lake Havasu City, and it got a little too big in terms of the system. We're now taking a look at, the MPO, or the Metropolitan Organization in Lake Havasu City, is taking the lead on doing a study to see if there's a market for transit or for bus services within Lake Havasu, more than we have right now with fixed locations and bus stops that could occur. This week there was a number of different user groups that were asked to kind of participate and give feedback, and I see some of those in the audience today. And I know Vice Mayor Lane has been involved heavily with this process and attending all the different meetings, and we're listening to the residents and the potential users of the system to see just what that might look like. We're engaging with those in the community that run the different shuttles. We're engaging in the community with the business owners, with maybe the major locations or stops that would occur. the hospital, ASU, MCC, mall location, things like that, where people are going to want to stop. So right now we're engaging with the public, and if you see any opportunity that exists, we want to hear from you to see what we want to do with that system. The plan when it comes back, regardless of what that looks like, based on input from the public, is going to be a phased approach. So we're going to be looking at doing something initially just to kind of get the ball rolling. We'll test it. We'll see what it looks like. And at that point, if there's demand and there's people in the community that say, hey, we want this to grow, or we want more routes, or we want more, more options with the system, then that'll grow organically as time evolves. Last thing we want to do is just bring in a big system and hope it works. So we're going to be doing little by little and providing the services that our residents are telling us that they need. So.
Excellent. We are happy to announce the next Hazardous Household Waste Day is December 14th. This is the day where you can get rid of all that pesky stuff, not all of it, but most of it. This is paints and oils and those types of things, tires that you might have laying around in your garage. Last coffee with the mayor and city manager, we had a discussion about desert cleanups and how do we clean up these park areas that people are throwing hazardous waste into. So we followed up, and the next hazardous waste again is going to be on December 14th, and that will be down at the city yard on London Bridge Road. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you'll just head down there. It's on London Bridge Road. There's a big city complex, which you'll be familiar with because we're going to meet there next month for coffee with the mayor and city manager. But that is where the Hazardous Waste Day will be held. Last time we did it, it was so popular. We had lines literally all over. It was crazy. Around and around. It was a big deal. So we're doing it much more often now, and hopefully that'll eliminate some of the lines that are there. A message from the county is many of you may have received a property tax bill in the mail. Previous to this, if you held a mortgage and it was paid for, your property taxes were paid on your mortgage payment, the property tax bill was not sent to your home. It was sent to your mortgage company. So a lot of people are getting confused because they're getting a property tax bill and they're not sure if their mortgage company is still escrowing the funds and paying that for them, or if it's a bill that's due. So that's a change in state law for property owners to be handed their property tax bill, so you know exactly what it is you're paying for and what area. So if you always have had an escrow payment on your property tax bill, it's just for your information. If your house is paid off and you pay your property taxes normally, pay the bill. You don't want to not pay that bill. But we've had a lot of inquiries about that. We're also working on the positional analysis, and we've talked about this several times over the last year. The council's been talking about it almost for 12 or 18 months now. But basically, this is taking a look at all city positions throughout the entire organization, what those positions do, and how they're compensated for that. I'll let Jess talk a little bit about where we're at in that stage and that process and what that looks like.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're conducting a positional analysis study, and the goal here, there's a number of steps we're taking, but the goal in the end is to be able to attract and retain the brightest employees that provide services for our residents. So we start off with a process where we engage. It sounds kind of silly, but this is how we start. Is we engage all the existing employees right now, because it's been 10 plus years, close to 15 years since the last time we looked at job descriptions. So we engage the employees, find out what they're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis. Based on that, we're generating job descriptions. Based on that, we're generating job titles. Based on that, we're able to go look at the comparables in the market for similar sized communities in Arizona. And then we're able to identify wages and compensation for each of the employees. So we have some comments that maybe our employees are paid too less, maybe they're paid too much. But this process and this study will allow us to identify what the market is. We have some challenges with some positions within the city where it's hard for us to attract specialized, mostly kind of specialized employees that have our GIS or a geographic information system coordinator. That was somebody that took a while to attract. We love Havasu, right? But it's one of those things where if you get a job in Havasu before living here, you have to sell your house. Your spouse has to get a job, and you move in your family to Havasu. So it's one of those things where We have some difficulties with the traction, and this process will help us do that. And so we're underway now, and hoping to find some numbers to share with the public and the council come December or January timeframe that allow us to look at that from the perspective of the budget process. So we're hard at work doing that right now, and soon to have some numbers. So.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, another change, just to let everyone know, is the Department of Economic Security building that used to be on London Bridge Road, was there for many years, has now moved. Just relocated in the last week. It's now located off of Spar Circle, which is right behind the courthouse on College Drive. So if you're heading to the DMV or to the courthouse on College Drive, you would turn left onto Spar Circle, and you'll see the DES on the left-hand side. So a lot of residents prior used that facility down on London Bridge Road in the same complex as the hospice retail store, but that's just relocated. So if anyone's looking for those services or trying to find where those folks are at, that is where they are located now. We have an event coming up, Imagine a Day Without Water. So what this is it's a tour for citizens to be able to join our water conservation specialist to tour and learn about the value of water and the water supply we have here in Lake Havasu City. It's on October 25th or November 1st. So October 25th or November 1st. And if you have any interest in attending that, you can stop by and see Jess or I after this coffee, or you can call 928-854-0880, extension 4931. Again, that number is 928-854-0880, extension 4931. And again, one more time for those watching at home, is 928-854-0880, extension 4931. We had this last year, and it was sold out, all these tours. So if you are interested, be sure to call and reserve a spot. It's a really engaging tour to understand where the water supply comes from and how we can conserve water within our area. And Lake Havasu already does such a great job with that, but you can see how those efforts are paying off. We have a few things, a few events that I wanted to go over with you real quick. So today is, it's Red Shirt Friday every Friday, but it's also Purple Shirt Friday. It's game day in Lake Havasu City. So the high school Fighting Knights will be at the home field here in Lake Havasu tonight. If you're interested, head out and cheer them on. And it's also, this evening, we will be having an event to paint the town purple. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey has challenged cities and towns across Arizona to advocate awareness for domestic violence, and that color is purple. So you see me sporting a purple tie today. I normally don't wear a purple tie, as you all know, and I'm doing that in honor of game day and also awareness for domestic violence. But we will have an event underneath the London Bridge to paint the town purple. What that's going to look like in Lake Havasu City is we're going to light the London Bridge purple, and you'll be able to see it as you go down into the bridge area, and the bridge will be lit up purple to bring awareness to end domestic violence and the domestic violence impacts our community as well as all communities across the United States. If that wasn't enough to do today, there's also the First Friday, which is down on the McCulloch Main Street area. They have a new area. If you've not been there, they have a lot next to Small Cakes, and they will be doing, it's actually a really charming area in the downtown, and there's artisans, and there's entertainment, and there's community members. It's just a great event to be able to connect with your neighbors and do something a little bit fun. I read in the paper this morning that you might see some zombies and people dressed in costume as well. I think that's part of this for Halloween. So I think it's a monster bash, is that what I read? Something like that in the paper. So again, that's First Friday. That starts this evening at 6 p.m.? 6 p.m. We also have the London Bridge Days Parade. It's the heritage of our community. That's on October 26th, the last Saturday in October. So October 26th is the London Bridge Days Parade. And then I would also like to welcome some of our elected leaders that are here. We have Vice Mayor David Lane is joining us this morning. Welcome. We have Councilmember McCoy. Welcome. And we have Councilmember Koch. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And then we also have State Senator Sonny Borelli, one of our biggest champions. Thank you for being here, Senator. Would you like to say a few words or give an update? I know I'm putting you completely on the spot, but exactly. I know if there's one person I can put on the spot, I know it's Senator Borelli, and he'll be able to tell us what's going on.
Everybody set your binds. It's going to be a heck of a ride.
So, Senator, if you do still have to be awkwardly between us because the people at home are picking up the mics over here.
Folks are, oh, wow, this thing's pretty loud.
Yeah.
Like I was, I met Vice President Pence at the airport on Wednesday, and I said, welcome to Arizona. We get to keep our plastic straws here. So he really liked that. So, I want to kind of give you a little bit of an update on what's going on in the state of Maricopa. It's great to be away from the occupied territory here at home. And, but for the folks at home, there's a friend out there, a couple friends out there that have inquired about why does the mayor always wear a tie? So, I'm going to tell you, if you're watching, I have a photograph of him not wearing a tie at a function. So, that would just be
one
a
photo,
scrap.
yeah.
That'll be a scrapbook. But I'm glad you're wearing purple. You could have worn a red shirt, but that's okay. It is Red Shirt Friday. But some of the things that's going on in Phoenix, you need to pay attention to. I've been watching things going on in the newspaper, especially with our school board over the sex education thing. I'm really happy that everybody started getting involved and paying attention because there's a big push going on in Phoenix. It's kind of going trying to be doing under the radar through the legislative process by going around the legislative process. So folks need to stay involved with what's going on in our city council and our school board. So I'm really, really pleased with that. On the issue of the rentals,
Yes.
when that passed through a couple years ago, it was supposed to be like, hey, wait a minute, we have a lot of snowbirds, they're gone, they should be able to rent their homes out. But you know what, with any kind of thing that comes responsibility. So, this has gotten out of hand. So this is one of the things that we're really pushing and working together to try to tie this in. I bumped heads with that one legislator that tried to challenge Sedona, but
He didn't win re-election either.
yeah. So it's been interesting because some people want to try to come back and push another issue. But what comes with freedom comes with responsibility. But I want to talk to you about something they're trying to get on the ballot. Years ago, Arizona, we passed, citizens of Arizona voted and passed for medical marijuana. Now, everybody thought that was a good thing, for patients and everything, and it was sold that way. And they actually promised that they would never put it on the ballot for recreational because this is medicine and it should be treated like medicine. Well, those same group of people, after they sold their medical marijuana licenses, it's kind of weird. Now, how do you sell a license that's not for a business that's not supposed to turn a profit, be worth hundreds of millions of dollars? So what they've done is they've sold out some of their licenses, and the big corporations have bought in, and they're trying to put recreational on the ballot. They're calling it the Smart and Safe Initiative. Well, there's nothing smart and there's nothing safe about it. What is smart is they're putting it on, the industry is putting it on the ballot, utilizing our Citizens Initiative process. So what you have is big industry putting themselves on a ballot to literally monopolize and create themselves their own niche market, just like they did in the medical marijuana industry. There's a lot of flaws with the medical marijuana program because it's voter protected. It takes 3/4 of the House and the Senate to be able to amend it, just to try to fix that. For example, the health department cannot go into a dispensary unannounced. Any other business in the state of Arizona, the health department can go into any business, whether it's everything from a Burger King to abortion clinic, unannounced during normal business hours. Except the health department has to give the marijuana industry 5-day written notice. So guess what? Hey, I'm going to come and inspect your illegal gambling operation on Thursday at 3 o'clock. Is that okay with you? What do you think is going to happen? Exactly. They lock everything up. All the stuff that they do, all the equipment that they have to process the marijuana, to get the extracts out to make edibles, all that equipment is locked up, and all the product is locked up. All the employees are gone. They're basically walking into an empty building with a lot of padlocks, and the health department can't even do the proper inspections. So that's a little bit unfair. So I ran bills to try to prevent that against, once again, it got defeated. Unfortunately, I needed Democrats to be on board with it. I got 100% Republican support, but the Democrats killed it. Because I needed 23 and 45 in the House and the Senate. But anyway, so I'm gonna take another stab at that. But what I'm saying, my point is, the industry is they're trying to put on a ballot their own initiative to where they protect themselves. Getting back to the inspections. A lot of us have friends, and I know we're not gonna debate the medicinal uses of marijuana. Let's just say, okay, it's legit, whatever, there's a legitimate use for it. But if you're a cancer patient, you have friends that are cancer patients and they go get a medical card. Now, do you want them to be taking something that's gonna be making them sicker? There's a product called Eagle 20. It's an antifungal pesticide that's banned in tobacco. Why? It's a heavy carcinogen. But there's no regulation, no prohibition for them to be able to use it in marijuana. So here's somebody who's got a cancer patient. They want to be able to get well or try to help themselves, but they're actually going to be taking something that's going to make them sicker. Not only that, but a few dispensaries have been caught with selling moldy, bacteria-infected marijuana. That's the leafy part. Now, the extracts that they take, they make the edibles, the brownies, and this is not the marijuana of the 1960s. This stuff is so potent that people have been they've been overdosing, if you will, for lack of another word, on the edibles, that they're literally having psychotic episodes in the hospitals. There's plenty of support to back that because Colorado's had major problems with that. DUIs are up 300% in Colorado due to related marijuana. Fatalities on the road are up on that, 30%. So, I urge everybody, there's a petition that's going to be coming around this year. Don't sign it. What we're trying to do is do something with the legislative process to fix the medical marijuana program first before we even entertain going down that road for recreational use. And by the way, how is it that they promoted marijuana for medical use, but now they want to recreate with it? We already have an opiate problem. So anyway, I don't go on and on, but I have some placards, so I'll leave back here if you want to read them. So thank you. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes, is any of that going on in our local dispensaries that you just informed us of?
Well, it's hard.
Periods and all that?
It's hard to say because you have to have a medical marijuana card to go be able to purchase it to go and test it. The health department can't really go in there and start grabbing stuff. They're not allowed to. So we really don't know, but what I've been finding out, it's really a lot of the people. It's hard to say because we really don't. It's wide open. Some people really take a very earnest interest in maintaining their professionalism and try to keep things at a norm. But, especially in our own area, I'm very concerned with. But this is what's going on in Phoenix. And what affects Phoenix affects all of us. So hopefully we have our folks out here that are doing things the right way, they really care about their customers, because that's basically what it is. Thank you.
Mike?
Sonny, are you guys doing anything about the vaping issue?
The question is, are we doing anything about the vaping issue?
And thank you, that's a good question. Because of that situation with, the nicotine being in the vaping, there's matter of fact, it was the town of Goodyear just outlawed vaping. They put some restrictions on vaping, you have to be 21 years old and so on and so forth. So that's gonna be another issue that we're gonna be dealing with at the state level this next session. Now, this is what the marijuana folks are doing. They're taking when they process out off the plant, instead of the regular leafy stuff that, some of y'all probably did back in the 60s and early 70s, but I don't want to see any hands in the air. But they're extracting the THC out of that and they're putting it in, obviously, edibles, the brownies and gummy bears, and they're putting it in these vape pens. So that's going to be a thing that we're going to have to be able to deal with. And once again, I'm going to hold the industry to the fire, their feet to the fire, because they're the ones that are putting up the biggest restriction, because we want to make sure that they kind of like, if you're being sold something that's supposed to be 10% THC, and you end up smoking something or ingesting something at 70%, my God, you can have we already regulate alcohol with certain levels of potency and proof. So I think we need to bring that into that norm and make it realistic, because it's not. It's totally Wild West. They're doing whatever they want to do. They're advertising whatever they want to do, and there's no oversight. And that's just about public safety and customer protection, so consumer protection. So, but we're going to be dealing with that this year. vaping. For marijuana and on the tobacco side.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate it.
Great, improving that, higher vet, thank you.
Senator Borelli was a former council member of Lake Havasu City and now is our state senator and is always available to citizens and to us and really champions local control for us, and we really appreciate all of his hard work. He's also the Senate Majority Whip, so he's a big deal, so on top of it. So thank you again, Senator, for everything you do. Before we go on to the next portion of today, which is all of your questions that we will answer, I just want to do a shout out again for the census. 2020 is the count year. Every 10 years, the federal government requires a count of its citizens, and this will be the first year that the majority of the census will be done online. And so it's really important that we stand up and be counted. The data from the U.S. Census, all of the population numbers that come through here, are the way that state shared revenues and federal revenues are brought back into your local community. So if we pay income taxes on things, gas taxes, those types of things, they all go to the state, and then they're all redistributed to cities and towns and counties based on the population of their citizens. So it's really important that we're all counted. There is all of the information at 78 years, I'll say it again, all of the answers that you put on your census form are concealed or confidential for 78 years. So I think it's safe to say none of us will be around when they're asking or when they're looking at the data to see how many bathrooms I had in my home in 2020. So please fill out the census. Of particular importance here in Lake Havasu City is we have a lot of folks that enjoy our beautiful weather that we're having today and into the spring, and then they hightail it out of here in the summer and go visit some areas that are cooler, but that might be where their original home was. And so they might still in their heart believe that that's home, and when the census form comes, they might check the box for that area versus Lake Havasu City. But if you live in Lake Havasu City for 6 months and 1 day, so 6 months and 1 day, you obviously live here the majority of the time, and you receive the services that are provided in a community in Lake Havasu City. Those are your roads, your public safety, your parks, water, wastewater, all of those types of things. So please be sure to check the box for Lake Havasu City and encourage your friends, neighbors, and everyone that you know that falls in that category to be counted in Lake Havasu City, so we get the proper funds back into our community so that we can provide those services to all of our residents. So, Holly.
Are they gonna send out a paper census still? Because I don't go online for anything.
Yeah, so if you're not, the question is, are they going to send out a paper census still? Their first postcard goes out in January, I believe.
February, maybe?
February,
Yeah.
January, February will be the first notification, and then there'll be some subsequent mailings as well if you don't go online. And if you still don't do it, there will be some door knockers that will come around and knock on your door. So
And the paper will eventually be mailed out as well.
and the paper will be included. So yeah, that will happen. But please be sure you are counted. Census Day is April 1st. That's not a joke. It is April 1st is the actual official Census Day. But we do want everyone to be counted. On that note, we also, the U.S. Census is hiring. So if you are looking for a part-time gig or you want a part-time job, it's a really important work. Go to Google Census. I used to have the website. I don't have it prepared today, but go online and apply for a job and help us be counted. So with that being said, I think we'll open it up for any questions anyone may have. Yes?
Not really a question, just wanted to promote the stand down.
You want to come up here and get on a microphone?
Yeah.
Oh, there's... Oh, Gordon was chasing you with one too, but we actually need you by us because the folks at home and on video need to connect to the ones that are with us.
Bear with, okay. I'm here to promote the Lake Havasu City Stand Down for veterans. It's going to be November 16th at the Aquatic Center between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. All veterans, please come. There'll be resources available for all veterans, and if you know any homeless veterans, please get them there. We're going to have haircuts for them, we're going to have clothing, and we're going to have resources to help them to get out of being homeless. So it's November 16th at the Aquatic Center between 10 and 2.
Excellent. Thank you. Any,
There'll be a free lunch too.
and there will be a free lunch at that event. Yes, sir.
The other question on the U.S. citizen
The question on what, I'm sorry?
U.S. citizenship.
Oh, U.S. citizenship on the U.S. Census?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, so the question is, there was some question about requiring, are you a U.S. citizen as a question on the U.S. Census? President Trump requested that. It's been referred to the Supreme Court, and I do not believe a decision's been made, but the forms are being printed without that question on it because of the time frame of where all that was. But I do know that it is a strong interest of President Trump, and depending on the ruling of the U.S. Supreme Court, will be the final decision on that. Sandy?
Yes, sir. Has there been any discussion in regards to people calling about code enforcement and there's no questioning? It's just taken as a matter of fact that a neighbor says, I did a survey, 5 motorcycle enthusiasts, including ourselves, have all had code enforcement over and over again. Neighbors are saying we have businesses in our garage. Our garage is for polishing their bikes. One gentleman works at the Metropolitan Water District. He rides his motorcycle every day. He does do woodworking, but he makes his grandchildren toys. He does not have a cabinet shop. I'm tired of the wasted resources to send Denise out every time somebody thinks something's going on. I don't even say biker anymore because in Canada, that's a drug dealer.
Oh.
You know, so motorcycle enthusiasts of this community, if you don't want us in your neighborhood because we make a little noise, come to the door and let me know. Call an authority? Really? How neighborly? I just can't figure that out. Thank you.
Yes. All right, so I heard 2 things out of there, so I'll address code enforcement first. Code enforcement in Lake Havasu City is reactive. What does that mean? That means if a citizen has a complaint that is a code violation, you contact Lake Havasu City through a variety of sources. So you can go to the website and fill out a form there. You could also download the Havasu Now app from your app store. So it's an app called Havasu Now. You can file a complaint there. That will also, you take a picture of it, upload it. It gives the GPS coordinates of where the alleged violation may be, and then it gives you tracked resources on how staff is going through that. So as far as what reactive means is if somebody calls and complains, we have to go and inspect it. We're not out looking for violations. If we split this room in half, the pendulum swings. So sometimes people want no code enforcement whatsoever, and then it swings over where everyone wants no parking in front yards and no parking on the sides of the roads and all those types of things.
But there are neighbors calling about the wind blowing the cover off the antique car in the backyard that's gonna get painted and hot rodded for Thursday night cruise night.
Yeah.
You know,
So if you are having, what we always recommend is if you have a code violation or you are a person that has extra vehicles in your yard, to talk to each other. Because once you get the city involved, we're pretty official looking. So we come, we have a clipboard, and we knock on your door, and we write things on paper, and it's just very official. So it's a little bit more standoffish at that point, and then it doesn't really allow you to have that two-way conversation with each other. So if you feel safe, knock on your neighbor's door if you're uncomfortable with something that they're doing, and try and talk it out before we ever have to get involved. But that's what we do with code enforcement. Now, as far as bikers or motorcycle enthusiasts, lots of people enjoy that in our community, and we're glad that you're here. And I know you're having an event actually this weekend, a poker run to raise some money, and we appreciate all that our motorcycle enthusiasts do. Yes?
Question regarding this. Is there any kind of a record kept on those calling these violations in? Because there could be a case of many prior complaints for the same situation, which is a form of harassment by a person who's too chicken to say anything up front. There should be some kind of a record kept so that the poor guy going out to enforce the code can say, look, you called 4 times before. Each of these calls has been superfluous. How about cooling it a little and not wasting our time and money?
Yes. So the question is about, do we track the people that are calling in the alleged offenses so that we make sure that they're not erroneous in their calling in and harassing their neighbor? The answer to that question is yes, we do that. And we work both sides of that equation. So, yes, Shannon?
I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for the flashing yellow turn signals. I think traffic is flowing so much better, and people are starting to catch on. And I hope that you might expand that to other stoplights as well. But thank you very much. That was one of the smartest things you guys have ever done.
So the question there, or the comment was, thank you for the yellow flashing lights down in the Lake Havasu Avenue improvements. So for those of you that are just returning back home here to Lake Havasu City, down on Lake Havasu Avenue as part of the improvements, the left-hand turn signal, of course, has a green arrow, it has a yellow arrow, and it has a red arrow. So that's normal. That's how that works. We're familiar with all that. There's a new addition, which is a flashing yellow that would allow when traffic is heading north and south, when safe, and once you've yielded appropriately, you can proceed and make a left-hand turn. So that's an important traffic control change that we've had. So just be aware of that and know that there is a little bit, take extra caution in that area. Also, you may have noticed out in front of the Senior Center on your way here this morning, there is now an intersection with stop signs at Saratoga and Acoma. So people have championed that for many, many years. So just keep an eye out for it, because some folks are used to it not being there, and so they just keep on going. But a stop sign is a stop sign is a stop sign. So just because it wasn't there before, it's there now. So make sure you stop at Saratoga and Acoma. Yes, sir.
Could you give us an update on where we stand on a second bridge going to the island?
Sure, definitely. So the question for those viewing at home is an update on what a second bridge to the island and what the update is on that. So we own the land island side, so we already have that land set aside that the city purchased. We just renewed, and you may have read in the newspaper, our memorandum of understanding with Arizona State Parks for the mainland side of where the bridge would start. So that's been renewed. So now we have basically the right-of-ways on both sides, so we've planned for the future. Right now, we don't have any funds identified in our 5-year CIP or capital improvement plan for the bridge. What I generally say is, the conversation will start heating up in maybe about 7 years or so, and then funding sources, we might be 7 to 15 years out before needs there. The London Bridge has been reviewed and is structurally sound and can handle the capacity and much more capacity than we currently have on it. Some folks mentioned, safety concerns if anything were to ever happen on the bridge, or an accident, or basically the bridge gets plugged up for some reason. We do have public safety command trailers that we can stage on the island, and we do when we have closures of the bridge for any reason, which will allow full medical facilities to happen there. We also have a fireboat that we're able to use to get to public safety. We have plenty of police boats. So it's planning, and it's long-range planning, but it's also very, very expensive to build a basic bridge. Jess and I talked about it just a couple weeks ago. We're in like the
15 years ago, it was $20 million. So you're probably looking at an estimate for something along that standards, if it's done properly and aesthetically pleasing, would be $30+ million for a second bridge, which is a lot of money that we have to take a look at in terms of priorities and what's important to the community. So.
Yeah, and again, that's a basic bridge. So there's some citizens out there that want to ensure, if we're going to have a second bridge, that it has some sort of elements that would complement the London Bridge in some way. So there's some groups that are working on that. But thank you for the question. Yes?
There's an area on Pima and Riviera that could use a stop sign. When you're coming off of Pima and wanting to make a left-hand turn on Riviera, it's a total blind corner. You cannot see, and people on Riviera don't realize that's a blind corner. They come around that corner, and it's very, very dangerous.
Yes. Yeah, we'll that's very, very close to the stoplight the stop sign that's on Palo Verde and Riviera. But we'll take a look at it. How we do anything with traffic, just to give folks that are watching an update, is because we want it doesn't mean it's right. And so there are people that this is what they do for a career. They're pretty smart folks, and they're traffic engineers, and they went to school for it, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. And they've created traffic standards, and that's how everything is measured against, as far as putting up signs, speed limits, road widths. Yeah, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more about how that process works and then how we implement it.
Yeah. So it's very important for us to identify standards, and if certain intersections meet warrants, then that dictates the change for or increase or lowering of the speed limit, for stop signs, for street signals, anything of that sort. So we go through a process. We hear from the residents. They let us know, hey, take a look at this intersection. We'll take a look at it. We'll get the professionals that take a look at traffic counts and crash histories and things like that. And based on that data, if it meets the warrants, then we move forward with the change. If it doesn't, then the situation remains the same. But I appreciate you pointing that out. We'll take a look at it. Yes. Riviera. We actually we have news to tell, so that's good. So I'll give you a little bit of history of the Riviera project and then tell you where we're at today. The Riviera project is the area that's along Highway 95 between Mulberry and Tacoma, lakeside over by the Water Safety Center in that area. Right now it's mostly identified by a traffic signal that goes across Highway 95 that have bags over it, and then a barricade so you can't get into the road area. So that's how you can identify where it's at now. That's a public-private partnership. So public being like Havasu City, public being Arizona State Parks, and private being Comac Enterprises, which owns some private holdings back in that area to create different neighborhoods. So we entered into the agreement several years ago. The city has done its end of the agreement, which was to pave the roadway out to what will be the Arizona State Parks project, which is the first Arizona State Parks on the Colorado River in over 20 years, which would be another mainland boat launch facility. And so that is done. All of those improvements that the city was supposed to do, including the stoplight. We then ran into a snag when Governor Ducey fired the Arizona State Parks director last fall. When he did that, all of the agreements were in peril that she was working on. He hired a new state parks director, Bob Broscheid, who's amazing. He actually is an Arizona State resident, or has Arizona State roots with Arizona Game and Fish. Left and ran a combined agency in Colorado, and Governor Ducey hired him and brought him into Arizona in February. He was confirmed by the Senate and is doing an awesome job. We've had, like Havasu City's had issues with Arizona State Parks about 3 years that we've been waiting for, 3 years. And we now have every outstanding issue that we are working together on is completed. So he really is doing a great job. And so they finally, we all came together. We engaged Governor Ducey in his office, and he set aside an attorney from his office to help facilitate it for us. So at procurement at the state level, the governor's office, Arizona State Parks, and the Attorney General's office, believe it or not, that everyone was involved. We finally were able to agree, one, that the agreement was intact and it should be able to move forward. And then we had to identify who was going to sign the agreements on behalf of the state. And that was all determined, and the agreements were just signed just a couple of weeks ago. So that has now allowed the private developers to move forward on their part. And so they are actively working. The Arizona State Park piece is through a concession agreement. So it's going to be an official Arizona State Park managed by a concessionaire that will basically use private dollars to build the launch ramp facility, the marina. Eventually it's envisioned to have a restaurant and a dock store. And they will build that with private dollars. They will operate it for a period of time, and then the state will take it over and fully own it and run it after that period of time has expired. So that is the process that's now happening, is getting those facilities. Our first phase that will open, the under the water, the launch ramp's already there. That's already been put in place. Next would be parking lots, parking lights, those types of infrastructure items, and then they'll move on to another phase, which would include dock houses, docks, and those types of things. So it is moving. That now is allowed for the private side to open up their land and start selling lots.
I believe that the private group would be interested in starting to do that potentially around first quarter of 2020, if not sooner. But they're just working through, now that they have the approvals, they have to work through, now that they have the master approval, they have to work through, all of the other approvals that have to take place with different agencies that they might be working with. But we are now moving ahead. We don't have any of those delays, and Riviera is back on track. Yes?
Any update on the Havasu Landing Casino opening?
Yeah, so Havasu Landing Casino opening is the question. Just again, for those that are watching at home, that is in California, not in Lake Havasu City. So what I say is just information that I know from what I've read. But I was told by a member of their management team that they anticipate to open somewhere between the 1st of November and the 15th of November, their new facility over there. Holly?
Did you tell them across the lake that they should have bingo?
I said, Holly said that you should have a bingo room. But from what I've heard, I haven't heard a bingo room yet, but I did tell them. So, Mike?
A non-city question to you. You mentioned the people that live here 6 months plus a day, and I would assume that most of the people in this room live here full-time, if you will. And after just having spent a month in the city of Denver, I used their light rail facility extensively. And when I drove my nice little Toyota over to park in the parking lot, I had to pay because I was not a Denver resident, which I can thoroughly understand. If I'm going to take up the space of a Denver resident in their parking lot, then I should have to pay. My question is, what happens to the winter visitors that come here and use this wonderful facility? Do they have to pay a fee of any kind to use the facility, or do they get the same benefit that you get as a full-time resident?
Yeah, great question that I don't have the answer to. So, Gordon, do you have the answer to that? So, if we have a winter visitor that wants to use the senior center facility, what's the fee structure for them?
This facility is open to everyone, winter or summer. You can become a member or not. You can take advantage of the activities. You have to pay. We have a $1 charge for every one of our activities. And then some of the teachers charge $1 or $2 extra. But if you have lunch, everybody pays. Nobody gets a free lunch here.
Except at the stand down. I heard there's a free lunch there.
Yeah.
But my concern and question is really, should not the people from, shall we say, Minnesota, shouldn't they pay more than people from Lake Havasu to use this facility because they are doing the same?
You have a good point, but the money, we don't get county money. Our money comes from a federal grant. It's a federal grant called aging, Commission for Aging.
Yes.
That's where our money comes from.
That answers my question.
Yes. Thank you, Gordon. Yes.
And,
Yeah. So the funds that again, we're in a county facility. For those just tuning in now, we're taking coffee with the mayor and city manager on the road, taking a tour of all of our different government-owned facilities. And today we happen to be at the senior center, which is owned by the county, and it is funded through a grant, a federal grant, is what the answer was there.
we pay rent to the county here.
Yes.
And the county pays half of our utilities, by the way. And then we gave the building to the county, and we lease it back from them.
Very nice. Yes.
Probably a question for the senator in regards to registration taxes versus gas taxes.
Yeah, Senator Borelli, do you? There's a question about is it the vehicle licensing fee versus gas taxes, and he loves this one. Yeah. And Sonny, if you can come up so that those at home can catch you on the mic over here.
Thank you. The $32 registration fee, that was supposed to be a fee, but it's not really a tax, which is weird because that's garbage. We fought hard for that in the budget to try to get it repealed. There was a bill to do a complete repeal in the Senate. We voted it out. It went over to the House. It kind of got stagnated there. then it became a political football in the budget negotiations, but we have a commitment from the governor that will be repealed. So it would only be staying for 2 years, so be repealed next year. So this is one of the reasons why we need to keep re-electing people, maintain the majority in the House and the Senate, so we can make sure that it stays, we hold the governor's feet to the fire on his commitment to a full repeal, because if we don't keep the right people in there, there's people that say, no, let's keep it there. But the other thing was about the gas tax. I know that's another one that, I know the state representative that's once again pushing that. It's not gonna fly, that's not gonna go through. If it makes it out of the House, it's not gonna make it out of the Senate, because I'm gonna make sure that I do my part to, because it's a tax on the poor, so, and tax on retired guys like me, so. Anyway, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I can tell that representative, you're all this gas tax stuff, you're full of gas, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that, just to be informed citizens of a community, we talk about aging infrastructure and roadways within communities. And Lake Havasu is very, very fortunate. We have fairly good conditioned roads. We basically try to hit every roadway that's managed by us every 10 years with some sort of treatment, whether it's slurry seal, do I even dare say chip seal, or overlays of other sorts. So we maintain our roads very well, but as you go on I-40, for example, or 95 and head towards Phoenix, you are risking your life sometimes out there with some of those potholes that are going to eat you up. And so we talk about no additional new monies for it, but we are going to have to eventually, as a citizenry, have a conversation about what we want to do about transportation infrastructure around the state. I mean, it's a state conversation, but lots of times we have cheers and wins for no funding sources for it, but yet we still want roadways. And I like to connect the dots sometimes, because sometimes it's hard for us to connect those dots on how that's actually paid for and how that works. So currently, when you pump gas in your car, you don't even know it because it doesn't add tax to it. Tax is inclusive of the price. And so that portion goes to the state and then is redistributed back to cities and towns called HERF money. I'm sure if you talk to anyone in the political world for just 1 second, you would hear the word HERF, which is Highway User Revenue Funds. And that's how we are able to do roadway improvement projects. So just to connect the dots on when we're having that conversation, because I'm elected, Senator Borelli's elected, our council members are elected, but we serve you, and so we have to all have the same basic facts when we're starting to talk about those types of conversations and where we go. Sandy.
I wanted to share something, and it leads into a question. Pam, our daughter, she works at the MVD. She says she is processing anywhere from 8 to 10 vehicle registrations a day from California. And there's what, 8 or 10 windows there. So we have enough room for all these people. I mean, it's like a movement right now.
Yeah.
That's a lot on a daily basis, don't you think?
I have no reference point to know what I think about that, but Sandy's sharing with us registration numbers of new vehicles coming from California, and the question, the underlying question is, do we have room for all these new folks that want to call Lake Havasu City home? So Lake Havasu City has growth expectations. We're actually one of the most fortunate communities because we're landlocked by federal lands and state lands, and so we know what our eventual growth is. So it's allowed us to be able to plan properly for infrastructure and water resources for a growing community in the desert. And we have population, our build out will be about 96,000 residents, full-time residents. Currently, we're about 55,000?
Yep.
Yeah, 55,000 or so is where we currently stand today. So, but for all those folks that are registering their new vehicles, folks are leaving as well. I mean, so there's the ebb and flow of how it works.
And they're purchasing vehicles, not just coming back
Oh,
and forth.
yeah.
Some of that registration too is that when they're purchasing vehicles and selling vehicles, that transaction's taking place. Not necessarily people moving to Havasu as well too. A combination of both.
Yes.
Why have they done away with the chairs at the DMV?
Okay, so any good politician would deflect on this one. So that's a state issue, but I do have an answer for you. So Governor Ducey challenged all of the state department directors, to increase efficiency and efficiency measures in their organizations. So many of the organizations that are, again, all state agencies, may have combined office spaces. They might have moved to different places with more favorable rents. They might have increased the use of technology and those types of things. So they say, and now this is not true for like Havasu City, and I might even say not true for Mojave County, but they say down in the metropolitan areas by not having the chairs that it's increased efficiency at the DMV by some percentage that they applaud. I agree it's a little bit awkward at ours and you have all this space and you're wondering where the chairs are, but evidently from the time that it took folks to get from their chair to the window was slowing down efficiency. So they're actually able to increase the efficiency of the flow at these very busy centers. Again, for some of the rural centers, I don't know if it was that big of a deal, but I guess if you add all the seconds together, that's just an answer. I'm not championing it one way or another, just informing. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
We're talking about the transportation review.
Yes.
Okay. We live very close to Starline School, and there's a traffic problem. So many parents bring their children to school, and you're talking about the public transportation system. Is there some way that the city can approach the school district and offer them some kind of a pass system at a lower fee for the children, and get the children? I know they're scattered all over, and it would be difficult to send a bus. I taught school, so I understand that. And if they had a city bus with stops all over these places that eventually converge somewhere near school, then the parents would be relieved of running to school every day, twice, and talking about your roads. Okay?
Yeah, excellent. Yes,
Yeah.
so the
Make a deal.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So the question was about traffic congestion in the school areas and the school zones. Particularly in the specific question was around elementary schools. Robert McCulloch's initial vision for Lake Havasu City was to have neighborhood schools where people would be, where parents would be able to drop their children off on the way of the normal course of the day, or children would be able to walk to school. So that was the intent. We know that's not exactly how it's happening, but that was the intent of how that all went. But during high traffic periods, City Transit and the transit review that Jess had mentioned and reviewed with us earlier, it would be provided at a very good fee that would be advantageous if somebody wanted to use a transit-related service to get themselves to school other than what they're doing today. So, yeah, so that there's an eye on that, and the school district has been a partner in the process as well. They've attended the focus groups to ensure that population's included.
The traffic and the parking.
Yes.
They don't have parking at these schools.
There is no parking, just enough for the building occupants. You're correct. Yes. Yeah, great point. Councilmember McCoy, did you have a comment or a question?
I was just gonna say that perhaps when you're waiting in line at the DMV, you might wanna bring your own chair.
Yeah, so Councilmember McCoy's offering a suggestion to bring your own little stadium chair with you and kind of scoot your way along as you're waiting in line at DMV. Any other questions? All right. Well, we always end every coffee with the mayor and city manager with some fun facts. So I have a few fun facts from the city, and then I have a few fun facts from the senior center, which again is the facility that so graciously hosted us. Just so everyone knows, we are hosted by these different venues, and they really go out of their way to make sure that we feel welcome. We encourage everyone to attend and join us. Our next Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager is on November 1st. It's always the first Friday of the month, so Friday, November 1st, and we'll be at the City yard, is
The
it called?
Public Works Maintenance Yard, yeah?
Public Works Maintenance Yard. I call it the city yard. I wasn't sure if that's the correct term, but it's on London Bridge Road. It's 900 London Bridge Road. You can just head out that way, find your way to a parking spot, and then we'll be there, and we'll have balloons or something to tell you what building to go into. All right, so fun facts. So a lot of people say to us, hey, you want to raise money in Lake Havasu City? And who would ever say no to that question? They say, get the police officers out there and write tickets for all these speeders, right? Everyone says that. So let's talk a little bit about where does that money go when a ticket is written. So the majority of the funds collected for a speeding ticket here in Lake Havasu City on our roads, the majority of that money goes to the state of Arizona. So 47% comes to the city, and that pays for court costs, because obviously there was money that we paid for the police officer that wrote the ticket, then it goes through the attorney's office and the prosecutor's office, and then it goes through the court, all things that we control. So of that money, 47% goes to that process, which does not cover the cost of providing those services. So again, so a ticket's written, 47% of the dollars you pay comes to the city to pay for and offset the cost of the police officer, the attorney's office, and the courts, which does not cover it. So it costs us money for each ticket that's written. And then 53% goes to the state of Arizona. So I just want to make sure we know those numbers. So I don't want you to go out there saying, well, that's why they don't write tickets, because it costs them money to write a ticket. Not true. Yeah, we absolutely enforce the laws and speed limits throughout our community on a regular basis, as directed through Justice's Office and the Chief of Police. But it's important to know that it's not an opportunity to make money, and that's not what we're in it for. And then, because we got your property tax bills because of the new state law, so some of you might be reading it for the first time if you, again, escrow your taxes, that out of the entire tax bill, that roughly 7% of the total tax bill is for the city. So it's actually one of the smallest amounts on your tax bill. And when you look at it, it'll outline exactly what the different line items are for that. So 7% of your tax bill is the city. The other entities that are collecting property taxes include the county, which is typically the largest share of that, Mojave Community College, which is our community college district, the local school district, and the Mojave County Flood Control, and then the IDD, which is the Irrigation and Drainage District, which we've talked about here before, and we'll talk about coming up about some changes that are going to be needed to be made to the IDD. But so 7% of your tax bill is from Lake Havasu City. So those are our fun facts from Lake Havasu. Were they fun? Okay, that's good. All right, let's talk about fun facts here at the Senior Center. They moved into this facility in 2002. Those residents that have lived here a long time might remember the facility on Swanson, which was across the street from where our ASU campus is. It's no longer there, it's been torn down, but that was the original. But this building they moved to in 2002. They have over 100 dedicated volunteers who worked 25,910 hours in support of this facility last year. 25,000 volunteer hours to make this facility go. Amazing. Yeah, great work. They prepare and serve lunch Monday through Friday. Last year, they had 971 clients register for the congregate meal program, and they served over 21,900 congregate meals. Amazing. They also prepare and deliver the Meals on Wheels Monday through Friday, and last year they served 30,933 meals to 297 Meals on Wheels clients. So amazing. Some of the citizens, those 297 people, the only human contact they have in a day or in a week is with those volunteers that are delivering these meals to these homes. So it's such a great service that they provide to our community, and we're very grateful. Thank you. And they offer 16 different activities and had over 23,955 people participate in those activities last year. So a very, very busy center that we're at. So on behalf of Jess and myself, thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on November 1st at our Public Works facility on 900 London Bridge Road. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.